Good afternoon, and welcome to my first mini-podcast. My name is Alexandra Gilman, and I am a literature student in the MAT program at Bard College. In today's episode, we will be looking at Dungeons and Dragons in the era of COVID-19. In this day and age, it is hard to find someone who has not heard of Dungeons and Dragons. However, most people only understand it as a reference that exists in the cultural consciousness. That being said, D&D is a beloved tabletop role-playing game that has a devoted following. Outing myself as a huge nerd, I have always wanted to play D&D, and got close a few times, but was never able to be a part of a real campaign. That is, until a few months ago, when I joined my friend's campaign of the Curse of Strahd storyline. I personally have been having a blast. Every Saturday, we load up Discord and Roll20 and begin our exploration of the mysterious world of Barovia. Our party consists of a Caliban warlock, an Aasimar bard, a changeling noble, a Dusk Elf magister, and my character, a Vistani psychic. It has been quite the challenge to pick up on how the game works jumping in the middle, but it has been exhilarating amidst the fray. I actually think a lot about how positive an impact it has been on my life, especially right now during a global pandemic. This thinking led me to the question of the function of D&D in the era of COVID-19. What benefits do we gain versus what do we lose? To me, the benefit has been huge. In an era of isolation, I have been welcomed into a warm community with a consistent meeting time, providing me with a new level of structure. That being said, I have never played D&D in person, so I reached out to my fellow players and my dungeon master to get perspective. For those of you who don't know, a dungeon master is someone who functions as the director of the campaign, but with only bullet points for a script and actors that love going off book. There was the general consensus that D&D, during such a crisis where everything is topsy-turvy, acts as an anchor, a stabilizing point. What more, my DM elaborated that, unlike a lot of nerd hobbies, D&D is a very social game. To play D&D, you have to be able to get along with other people. Essentially, it's about human connection. D&D has made an effort over the years to be a place of acceptance and healthy interpersonal relationships. My fellow party member, Frederick, commented that both Pathfinder 2nd Edition, a D&D spin-off, and D&D 5th Edition have made it a really big thing to try and rebrand the game to make it more inclusive. There's a cultural shift there. In a time where all of our social lives are struggling to survive, D&D is a way to socialize and have something to obsess over simultaneously. My DM, however, turned his gaze towards the distant memory of in-person games, longer games, more cohesive games, more entertaining games. To be fair, the camaraderie that is inherent in any D&D game, whether online or in person, is far more potent when people are in the room with you. Roleplay is tricky to coordinate between internet lag and distraction. It is hard to find a rhythm of organic conversation and sense of concentration. The energy can suffer, the conversation can peter out, and in general, can fall apart more quickly. The point was brought up that there seems to be a higher level of dependability with the in-person games. Something about everyone committing to meet in the same physical spaces appears to be more incentivizing for consistent presence of players. To be fair, I understand that. It takes a lot more work to be present for classes that I'm not physically present in. It carries the essence of lesser accountability. What more, screen fatigue is intense after a few hours, be it in the school metaphor or for the topic at hand, D&D. In the end, however, it was agreed that it was better to have any form of D&D than no D&D at all. To have that sense of togetherness and teamwork as we work our way through traps set by undead paladins with revenge quotas, attempt to reason with a stubborn demon staff named Woody who thinks he's a lot more suave than he is, flirt with nobles, necromancers, sylvans, devas, and vampires, and try to survive the chaos that surrounds Castle Ravenloft together.